Welcome back to Autism Through My Eyes, real talk from a dad who lives it every day. I am your host, Craig Young, and today we're diving into one of the most important topics for families with special needs: how to apply for SSI, Medicaid, and Medicaid Waiver services. Now, I want to take a moment to introduce Dr. Chris Elkins, a true warrior for families with special needs. As a transition specialist at our local high school, he has dedicated his career to making sure young people with disabilities and their families have support, resources, and opportunities they deserve. I've never met anyone who fights harder for these families than Dr. Elkins, and I'm honored to share the mic with him on this journey. Welcome, my co-host, Dr. Elkins.
Hey, I appreciate it, Craig. I really do. And listen, man, you're a warrior as well, my friend. You're doing a lot to help a lot of families in our area and really across the nation, um, reaching families a lot of different platforms. So it's really appreciated. And man, we're just going to, get back to those steps where we were trying to unpack Medicaid waiver and Social Security. So we're going to go back to trying to work our way out of the woods here, trying to get out of this chaos that's Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicaid waiver.
Thanks, Dr. Elkins. Now, in our last episode, we talked about the challenges of navigating Social Security and Medicaid, and today we're going to go step by step through application process so families know exactly what to expect. Take it away, Dr. Elkins.
I appreciate it, Craig. So let's really start with that first piece, that SSI, that supplemental security insurance. That SSI, applying for Social Security benefits for your child with a disability can require a lot of time, energy, and man, most of all, paperwork. Man, these are like some serious paperwork. So that's really we're going to get specific here today, where we're going to try to break down that paperwork. Now, Craig, luckily, Social Security provides a checklist of information together, and I want to go through the highlights of that. All right, so this checklist, luckily, Social Security uh, provides us with this checklist of information that will kind of lead you through what's needed. It seems like a lot, it's not too bad. A lot of this is really just basic information about your child, your individual that you're applying for. You'll need stuff, of course, like Social Security number, birth information like birth certificate, name and contact information about two family members or someone who can answer some questions about your child's condition and situation. One thing that families don't realize is that, and this is generally a Georgia thing, and this may be in other states a similar routine, but one thing that families don't think about is creating a checking or a savings account for the Social Security money, the Social Security monetary benefit to be deposited into. I've spoken to families and they were like, we never even thought about creating like a checking or savings account. Now in Georgia, we're lucky to have what's called a stable account. Now, any resident of Georgia who developed a qualifying disability before the age of 26, and I'm kind of reading from the Georgia regulations here, who has a qualifying disability can be eligible for that stable account, and it's called a Georgia Stable. Now, I'm going to go through the rules of this very quickly, and then I'm going to navigate through this website for a moment with you. Account holders can save and invest up to $19,000 a year, and if you're employed, it can go up to around $15,000 a year, up to that. And it helps with a wide range of qualified expenses. The account's growth is tax free. Contributions may qualify for a state income tax deduction. Best of all, your supplemental security income, your SSI, will not be affected as long as the account balance is below 100,000. That's usually going to be the case. Now, other federal means benefits are not affected regardless of the amount saved in the account. You also have access to a network of established partners in the disability community for more support and helping with financial goals. I have found around the Savannah area where we live, there are a lot of different law offices, financial planning groups that can assist in trying to set something like this up.
Okay.
So let me navigate through the Georgia Stable website for just a moment. Everything on here for you folks living in Georgia, everything is on here that you need. You can check eligibility status. I think this is an amazing program. I've had several families I work with have done this, and it's just been very beneficial. So it will help with, for lack of a better way to put it, that SSI, that supplemental income, is trying to put it in a place where you're not going to lose some of it. If you have your young person with a disability who's working, this can help some in trying to lessen the impact of a small part-time job or something like that. So,
That's awesome.
um, forgive me. I know we have families from other states probably going to be watching this. Check with your local state and talk to a financial planner if needed, if you have one, to try to say, hey, we're familiar with this program in Georgia, the stable account. In my state, is there something similar? But anyway, in this list, the benefits that I discussed earlier and how it works, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to leave this information here, and I'm going to get back to the Social Security income, SSI, that supplemental income. I want to get back to that for a moment. Let me
Okay.
show you real quick where that checklist I was talking about. Just in case you want to find it, ssa.gov, and that middle section right here, apply for benefits. You can click there, and if you start an application, you can return to your saved application. Is very, very straightforward. So I want to go ahead and bounce back now to this checklist for a little bit. So you've got a cheat sheet to access for all the stuff that you'll need. So let's get back to that checklist. So coming back to this checklist, again, like I mentioned before, some of the basics you would need: have that Social Security card, birth certificate, and all that handy. One thing you really want to have is this information right here: medical records, anything you can, everything ranging from psychological evaluations to physicals to anything from your physician. If they have a diagnosis of autism, you would want to have the information from your physician or a therapist describing that autism condition. What's going on with that? What did they diagnose exactly? Because they're going to ask you when you apply for SSI, well, what are some of the impairments for working? And to have that information handy is just very helpful. So any therapy reports, medical stuff, psychological evaluations, school psychologicals for school age children, even if you have medical examinations and tests that you have scheduled, you're sat at your computer and you're doing this SSI application and you have an upcoming appointment, list that too. Whatever you can to show what you're currently doing to cope with their situations, their medical needs. So whatever
Okay.
reports that you can. So I want to come back to the SSA.gov website from our checklist. So this is where middle of the column here, where it says apply. Prepare is where my checklist was, and you can come back to that if needed. But in that checklist is super handy. But I'm going to click on this apply for benefits. And so who do you want to apply for? It's either an adult age 18 and over or a child under age 18. I'm gonna tell you right now, getting SSI, that supplemental security income, that is extremely difficult under age 18. They take into account families' income, and that can often be a challenge. So I'm gonna focus mainly on SSI, looking at adult children. I work a lot with families, young people who are 18 to 22. In our school system, they age out once they turn age 22. So I tend to work with a lot of families as their children turn 18 and they're looking for SSI. This is kind of what I'm used to guiding families to. What do you want to apply for? Disability benefit. That's most often what I work with families with. Supplemental security income for disability, SSI. You're blind or have a disability, it's hard to pay for essentials like food or clothing. 65 or older, we won't go down that area, but that is an area if needed. And then you go from there. You create an account, very easy. Keep track of all your username and passwords and things like that. Click sign in. I will mention that a login.gov account. You can create that. Very straightforward. And it'll navigate you through how to create that. One thing I won't point out: be prepared to get rejected the first time. You may have to appeal a decision. I'm going to click on that. If you don't agree with the decision we made, follow the process to request a change. You will most likely get rejected the first time you apply for SSI. Be willing to fight, and you may need to get assistance with that. But I don't want to go too far down this, but certainly be prepared. I've worked with many families that it took 2 to 3 attempts to get SSI. Now,
Wow.
what I want to go, yeah, it's Craig, it's something, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Um, and you sometimes have to go back and dig for further medical information. That's why I'm begging you from our first episode a couple weeks ago. I was like, hey, do your homework, try to get everything you can together.
Okay.
IEPs from school and things like that, because that might be information you need for the appeal.
Dr. Elkins, that's one thing I want to ask you. What's the difference between SSDI and SSI?
It's a great question, Craig, and it's just really two different programs. And earlier, I have to be careful. I sometimes interchange insurance and income. The SSI, Supplemental Security Income, and then there's SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. SSDI tends to be for people who have earned like a living for many years with Social Security, perhaps were injured on the job, had
Okay.
a disability that developed, and they're unable to work. The SSI is what I tend to work a lot with. SSI, Supplemental Security Income, pays disabled individuals unable to work and have limited income and resources. Now, I will say this: I do get a lot of young people who access this supplemental security income, but then they work part time, and that's what I mentioned earlier with that stable account. And going back to our episode 1, my brother Jonathan, when he was talking about Joshua's story, Joshua's supposed to get $800 a month in SSI, but it comes to roughly about 600. Now, in their
Okay.
case, it's an income situation. They take out a portion because of Jonathan and Marie's, my sister-in-law, their income. But also for individuals who have a part-time job, if you're not careful and don't access that Georgia stable account and you just get those paychecks from that little part-time job, your child with a disability, they get their paychecks and they go straight into your checking account. Portion of that can get taken out. So using stable accounts helps avoid that if you can. But
Okay.
typically, SSI is a needs-based public assistance program. It doesn't really require you have a work history to access SSI. SSDI, you tend to have some sort of, my understanding of it at least, some sort of work experience in the past.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins, for helping me with the SSI, SSDI, separating that and figuring that out and breaking it down for me. Now, remind us again about Medicaid and how that applies with SSI.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Now, for my Georgia friends, I'm gonna share, some information about Medicaid very fast. In Georgia, it's pretty straightforward because if you get approved for SSI in Georgia, you are approved for Medicaid. So they go together. So you have Medicaid coverage, you get Medicaid card and can access that. But just in case, let me just for my friends who are outside of Georgia, not every state does that. So I mean, I'll just show you Georgia's website for applying for Medicaid, but this may look different for your individual state. So again, SSI recipients in Georgia, you get Medicaid. You're fine. You don't have to do this. You don't have to apply for both. But just in case, this is how it looks like in Georgia, but in your state, you'll probably get very similar. For expecting moms under age 18, 65, blind, have a disability, require nursing care. All these are eligibility requirements for Medicaid in Georgia. And they do the same thing here that I did on the checklist earlier. So I'm not really going to go over this because for my friends in Georgia, this is not necessary. But for folks out of state, you should have a very similar guideline here, like a checklist that you can go through, apply for Medicaid if needed, and get that sorted as well. To get the Medicaid waiver in any state, certainly to my knowledge, and certainly hope I'm not misspeaking here, but to my knowledge, to get the waiver, you have to have Medicaid. So that's why in your state, if they don't SSI and Medicaid don't go together, you got to do this as well. Okay, everybody. So we've done SSI, talked a good bit about applying for that, did a brief detour towards Medicaid. Now, no pun intended, now is the now comp. Now is the now and comp waiver in Georgia. Now it's getting down to the business of busting out of the woods and breaking down this. And I used that example a while back in our last episode about we talked about the basics of SSI and Medicaid waiver. We kind of were unpacking the box. Now we've put some batteries in this thing and we're ready to play around with this thing and get it moving. So this website, georgia.gov, will give you the basic information you need about applying for the now comp waivers. Your child has been approved for SSI Medicaid, but we want to waive those Medicaid requirements and we want to make some things happen. So I'm going to kind of navigate a little bit step by step. This website here gives the basics on the now comp waiver. And you're going to have some decisions to make about how you can apply. It's a good thing. Some people are intimidated with the computers. Some like old fashioned, just the good old paperwork, having that paper in front of them to sift through and fill out, get all that information together. So I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you a way you can apply online. I'm going to show you the way to do via paper. So we're going step by step. I'm going to scroll through this website. This is georgia.gov, applying for the now comp waiver. If you want to jot down that very long website, or if you go to georgia.gov, it makes it very easy to find. It is on the main page. So, hey, why don't I do this? Let me take a little quick detour. Georgia.gov. For my friends in Georgia, again, in your state, you can navigate to your state's webpage. But instead of jotting down that massive website address, georgia.gov, click on services, and make life simple now. Type that in, and there it is in the search bar. I'm going to lift that up a little bit. We'll do a search. We'll type that one more time. There we go. We're minus my typos. Apply to new options. This gets you to the website you need and has the information. These Medicaid waiver programs support eligible Georgians with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Medicaid waiver is money that may be used to pay for services for a person with intellectual, developmental, or physical disabilities. These services can take place in the person's home or in the community, not in a facility. It can if needed, but at the end of the day, your loved one is going to be able to access their environment that they're used to work, play, do what they want to do, to be involved in the community in so many different ways. So this tells now in comp are eligible intellectual developmental disabilities. This link right here will lead you into further descriptions, but we've already talked a little bit about the waiver. Next time we get together, we'll talk about services, but I want to get into the application part.
Okay.
So I want to scroll through. So how do I apply to now in comp? I love this for Georgia. They do make it really straightforward. Make sure you're eligible. Have a diagnosis of an intellectual disability prior to age 22, cerebral palsy, autism, so many different things. Significant deficits in adaptive functioning. I can brag about my school district. We do adaptive functioning testing in school psychologicals. A lot of schools don't, but we try to address that. So if you need to give a psychological to DBHDD, applying for Medicaid waiver, that should be addressed in that. But one other thing, they do give you also what you need: proof of citizenship, birth certificate, social security card, Medicaid card, because you've applied for SSI Medicaid and you have that Medicaid card handy. Relevant psychological reports, documents from schools. We've already discussed that. Now, you've got a choice here. Now, according to the state website, you can apply by mail or apply in person. Now, locally, apply by mail, by the way. It tells you where to mail stuff off. You can click on those links. It'll tell you exactly where to send stuff.
Okay.
Apply in person. Now, I'm speaking locally, Craig. Apply in person. I'm going to show you the paper application in a moment. I'm just speaking locally. Richmond Hill area, where I live, where you live. Our nearest office is the Region 5 office in Savannah. And you can go by there on Eisenhower, take all your information with you, go to the desk, and they'll guide you to someone, an intake coordinator, who will sit down with you and meet, and they'll lead you through the application process. Now, I was blessed in that my local area has a Region 5 office who is willing to have people come into our schools. We've
Okay.
got workshops. We've had people come here and actually take applications, which is a blessing. I don't know if every area has that or every state has something like that. But this just shows you the information that's needed. You could go in person to DBHDD office, or you can mail it in. I've had some families fill it out and then they just mailed the information in. In Georgia, we have 6 regional field offices, by the way. I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes. I think our next episode, we talking about services. I will kind of mention the offices across the state of Georgia. Region 5 office, though, in Savannah, I mean, it covers a large geographic area in southeast Georgia. So
Okay.
now, before I go onto the online form, I want to switch gears and show you the paper copy if you decide to do, the mail or in-person thing. So let me show
Okay.
you that paper copy. All right, so this paper application, it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. All this paperwork looks intimidating, I know. Remember we talked about, fight the frustration? Don't get frustrated by it. Worst case scenario occurs, ask. Call the DBHDD office, nearest field office if need be. But I'm going to take a moment to scroll through. So far, real straightforward. Medicare or Medicaid number, because you've got that Medicaid going now. Social Security number, current living situation, all of that. That's all straightforward. So far, so good. Really still straightforward. Primary contacts, not too bad. Legal status. Now, this is something I do not want to go down this road yet, but guardianship, that's where adult guardianship becomes a thing. I don't want to address that yet. That is a whole nother episode unto itself. But the legal status of the applicant, are they competent to handle this stuff on their own? Emancipated. Legally incompetent means documentation required. That's where you would need psychological evaluations, therapist reports, medical stuff to prove that. Are they a minor, or if you're not sure? But it is mandatory to fill in legal guardian details for individuals with a court appointed guardian. Guardianship order from a Georgia probate court must be attached. So us in this Richmond Hill area, we typically work with the folks in Savannah, the court in Chatham County Probate Court, and they assist with that. It can be a expensive and lengthy process. So, is the legal guardian a person or an agency? Are they a ward of the state? I've worked with individuals who have worked with DHS who have a court appointed guardian. So if there is a guardian, you just list that, our legal guardian or caseworker, you list that information here. If you're assisting and filling this out, your relationship to the applicant. All right, so I'm gonna scroll through that. I want to get to not English proficiency, pretty straightforward. Mode of communication does the applicant utilize? So this is where you start to get a little more into understanding the disability, the impairment. What is that special need? Do they are they able to communicate verbally, sign language? What kind of communication do they use? Preferred mode of communication. One thing, hearing and vision. Typically, in our school system, by the way, we do hearing and vision screenings before we do psychological evaluations. So that could be something that school has already updated for you. Does the applicant have a confirmed intellectual or developmental disability diagnosis? We would mark yes. And then this is where you start to get into referral resources. Who referred you to apply, or what current resources do you have? Do they have a vocational rehabilitation caseload going? Are they getting assistance with employment? You're going to most likely be checking SSI. You can most likely click Medicaid. If you filling this out for your child has veterans benefits, you would click there. So you would go through which of these situations apply. They want to know what resources you're bringing to the table when you apply for the waiver. They're going to take into account income. They're going to take about, yep, there we go, applicant's monthly gross income. So all of this is going to be taken into account. My brother, like I said before, experienced that with Joshua. Physician details, the documents that are needed. And really, this is on the form. We're on last page of the form, applicant signature. That's another thing right here. I had a family, a young person who could not write really well at all, could not write at all, and was borderline nonverbal. But the parent did not have guardianship, so the child had to make a mark on this, which I know wasn't really asking a lot of that. So, but anyway, so this is part of the document. There is another part that will ask, it is not listed on here. They will want information about what specific needs do you feel your child needs. And this is where I tell families to ask for as much as you think you might need. You might need transportation. You might need home therapies. You might have your child, your young person may have significant behavior needs, and you got a guy. You need assistance for that. You need guidance for that. I've worked with families who've used Medicaid waiver for a variety of different things, ABA therapies and stuff. So it's critical to be when you interview with the intake coordinator, and we're going to talk about intake coordinators and planning lists. That's our last step of this process. When you talk to them, let them know as much as you possibly need. Let them know as much as you can. More detail, the better. You can't underdo this. Feel free to overdo if you can.
Dr. Elkins, I appreciate that. Now, you mentioned that it was an online application as well. Can you show us that, please?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, Craig. Now, like I said, the paper copy, it's great, if you want to apply locally, but on this georgiacollaborative.com, I'm going to go back one more time. georgiacollaborative.com. Look here at the top right. You'll miss it if you're not careful. Apply for IDD, Intellectual and Developmental Disability Services. You click on that and scroll down just a little bit. It's going to give you that same checklist that was on the paper copy, same information. Gives you information about how you create an account. Very straightforward. I'm going to click actually on the online IDD waiver application. Has the paper there too if you wanted, but the online application. And then here where it says new user, you'll click on that. And Craig, it's the same thing except online. I met with this wonderful individual. She came from Atlanta and did that workshop we did in our school system last year. Wonderful lady. She led us through this. And without her, I would have never discovered this. She was like, Chris, you don't know about the online option? I said, I didn't know. I didn't anyway. But she guided us through this. They have given me the impression lately they've preferred it be online. That speeds things up just a little bit. This information, once you do it, will go into a state database, and then it gets to the region office that it needs to. In our case, again, it's the Region 5 office.
Okay.
So yes, online is an option as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, Dr. Elkins, we've covered SSI, Medicaid, and the Medicaid waiver application process. Next, we're going to tap into the planning list. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I know we're going to save that for the next episode, but can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So you got the SSI, Medicaid. We've applied for the waiver, which is in Georgia, applying for DBHDD services. That gets you on the waiver planning list. Now, just very quickly, we're going to talk next episode that sometimes that looks different for families. Different families looks different. Some families have been on that planning list in Georgia for a while, and that gets to be an immensely frustrating experience. So we're going to talk about planning list, but I want to briefly mention a planning list coordinator in Georgia is you'll see a phrase called navigator, a planning list navigator. And that's what we're going to talk about next episode is someone with DBHDD. This is a Georgia thing, but it's probably similar from state to state. And these individuals help people with intellectual and developmental disabilities access services through the state's now and comp waivers. And we'll talk about what exactly they do, how that looks, and then once you get that planning list navigator gets you off that planning list, off that waiting list, and you see services coming directly into your home or your child going into the community with services provided. I also want to start talking about services. So planning list, how that looks and what that looks like in Georgia and how that works, but then also talk about the services part of it, which Craig, I'm super excited about in the future. I think we can do a lot in relation to having service providers in our local area come and start talking to us about what those services look like. I get a lot of families talk to me about, Chris, you keep mentioning services and supports. Well, that next episode, you get off that planning list and get those services happening. That can be an exciting time. And I think, Craig, you've been experiencing that as well with a local service provider and some of the great stuff that they do. So super excited about the next steps to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, families, I hope this episode gives you clarity and encouragement. Remember, no matter what state you're in, you can find a similar process to get your child the help they need. Now, those services and those providers, we're going to have them on eventually on this show, and they're going to come on and they're going to explain to you what they do. Right now, I have one of the companies, one of the programs, Employability, that I'm working with, and it's a fantastic program. So I definitely want to get them on, okay? Dr. Elkins, man, thank you so much, man. You have been a blessing. This is a lot of information, and I hope people have their pens and their pads and they're writing all this stuff down. And thank you again for coming on.
Oh, absolutely, Craig. Always. And thank you for your impactful work getting this conversation started. Just being able to the school and parent and us working together on this, it's just incredible. So thank you again for having me and look forward to this as it continues to grow. Thank you so much.
Families, this is why we do this show. No parent should have to wander through this process alone. And now you've got the steps right in front of you. If this episode gave you clarity, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. That way you won't miss what's coming next. Because in the next episode, we're breaking down the actual services and supports your child can receive. And that's where the game really changes. And listen, if you know another parent, another family member, another church member, anyone who's walking this same road, share this episode with them. Send it in a text, post it on Facebook, drop it in your group chat. You could literally be the reason another family finds the help they've been searching for. So subscribe, share, and stay with us because we're building a community that makes sure no family gets left behind. Thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all take care.